Hi everybody, thank you. Let's start, right? This is how I should start. Привет, beep. That's the thing I learned yesterday. So I'm really excited to be here. I think when I was invited to come here, it was like Ukraine. It was never part of my travel plans, so I said yes, why not? So I wanted sharing some stories that I want. To be honest, I'm really excited, and my closest connection with Ukraine or Ukrainian culture was Ukrainian village in Chicago when I lived in Chicago, so that's the only thing about Ukraine I knew. And then I watched the Olympics, so I knew a bit more of it. So to tell you I know Oksana mentioned a bit of my background. I will tell you a bit of who I am. So I'm Luis. I'm from Peru. I'm not from Spain, despite the invitation. I'm from Peru. I have a business background. I went to design school in Chicago. And the last 4 years, I've been living in Madrid, where I'm working in IoT. I like cooking. I like eating. I had a bunch of food last night, and during lunch as well. I was trying. I don't remember the names, but I was having good local food, which is the part of knowing a local culture. But the goal today, I want to have a conversation with you guys. I want to talk you. I will not mention much about technology if that's disappointing in a tech conference, but I will talk about people, right? I want to share those stories about how understanding people might change the way we see projects. I will share some learnings, the attitudes that we try to have during the projects, and hopefully it's useful for you. But again, let's keep it as a conversation. So to start this, I want to share this part of a conversation I had with a good friend of mine, is that many of the times the problems are presented as a solution. Many of the companies, many of the startups, many of the managers say, we don't have an app, right? And remember back in 2000s when we all need to have a website, but nobody knew why we needed that, right? Or sometimes it's a consequence. The process is slow, but we never ask why. So I don't know if this message resonates on you, on your companies, on the job you're doing, but this is what mostly I see in the industry. I will share 2 cases today, some thoughts, attitudes, and we'll open the conversation. So the case 1, it was back in 2012, 2013. We were bringing video services through LTE. Sounds very complex, but what we were trying to do is we were not providing 4G connection yet at that time, but we were thinking, what if we could provide TV services, pay TV services through a dongle? So not only on your mobile, or your tablet, but it would be sort of like a USB thing that could transmit video services, so your pay TV service would be in any TV, right? It was new connectivity, a different type of hardware, new services to provide. It sounded really, really sexy. So we said, okay, let's do it, but let's talk to people first. And we started talking to people. We went to their homes, we started talking to them, and it was surprising. At the beginning, they saw the device, it was really, oh, this is what I want. I want to take my TV services anywhere, that's perfect. But then you started talking a little bit more with them, and you start realizing that they were doing something different. They were excited with the hardware, as any hardware piece that we see for the first time. Hey, I want it, but then we don't use it. So what we found out, and this might not be new for you guys, is that they were spending hours downloading pirate content, because they wanted the latest season of How I Met Your Mother, Homeland in that time. So they were doing that already. Even they were paying for TV services, but they were downloading that content because we didn't have that. And on top of that, and the most surprising part for me was they were doing this, an actual social experience. They were getting together, getting dinner or coffee, and exchanging hard disks. Some of the users we talked, exchanging hard disks, I have the latest season, and then we'll meet next week, next month, and we'll change back the hard disk with the next, with the other content you downloaded. So at that point of the project, we started asking ourselves, what problem are we solving? What are we trying to solve? Should we really launch a new hardware, a new piece of hardware, or should we thinking differently? So it was part of a team decision, and remember the name of the case, bringing or not an LTE video service. So we stopped the project. We decided to stop it because we didn't have the conditions. We didn't have the right content at that moment, and we recommended the company to focus more on content, in getting better distribution agreements, better negotiation with the producers and distributors. So the learnings, what we learned in this is about using some of the theories of 10 types of innovation. We cannot innovate only in product. If we innovate only in product, we will be very quickly copied by someone else. So when we think of innovation, we try to think on what's around that product. In that case was content, but you should be thinking of what's the business model we'll be paying, of course, branding, service, and even the structure of the company and the team. And the other lesson is that we can fall in love with our projects. They might sound really sexy, they might be our kids, but we need to let them go if they don't seem valuable in terms of business. So that was something that we really didn't launch. And the second case will be something that we are exploring these days. I'm working in the IoT business, looking at some what we should connect in the future, and also about smart cities at the beginning. So it was about applying different lenses for the smart city. It started as a request not to reframe smart cities, but because we have a smart city business, but we were asked to understand what a smart city means for a user, for a citizen, right? I don't know if you are all involved in the tech world, so the term smart city might not sound weird for you guys. So when we talk about smart city, many of the times we're thinking about this, the big control panel, the dashboard of the city that the city of Lviv has. This is real, of course. I didn't get the picture of the city of Lviv, but as a tech company, we think that that's a smart city. Everything connected, everything synced. We can keep control of everything, waste, transportation, and it's fine. Of course, what we do as a normal practice is we go out, we talk to people, right? We went out on the streets, we also went to homes, and we tried to understand what are the relationships of people with the city, right? And we were exploring different areas, not only transportation, but different areas of the city, and how people interact with people, with the city, with people, with governments, and everything. It was a really rewarding experience. And by the way, I have to acknowledge here, Javier Sierra was one of my colleagues who did the initial part of the research, and I will share some of the findings there. But this is what I was saying before. When you talk about smart city in a tech environment, you will see the whole control panel, the dashboard of the city, and that's really sexy. But then you go to people, you ask them, oh, how do you feel about smart cities? And you get something like, huh? Is a smart city? What's smart city? Maybe with smartphones? Something with that? So what we learned there is that it's really complicated to bring all these technical terms to people, right? People want problem solved, right? They don't want smart cities, right? And what we found is that there are too many contradictions on what the companies or the industry perspectives are and what our perspective as people are. And this is what we brought to the table. We didn't plan to to change the business of smart cities, but we were trying to bring an additional perspective so we can have a better business of it. So now I will share some of the contradictions we found between the industry and the users. Because, well, I said that before, many people don't see smart as a benefit. So number one, in terms of how the industry thinks, is the metrics of success. When we talk about what a good city is, what a smart city is, all the time you talk to the governments, they will say, oh, the GDP, inflation, prices, and all different measures that comes from the economy, but they probably don't mean much for us directly, for us as people, right? So one of the things we think and we believe, and we're trying to convince businesses, is that this is not enough, that these are not street level measures. So what if the city is saving 2 million euros because they changed the lighting systems? What does that mean for us? Do we see any of those savings? Probably not. So that's why we are questioning those measures, and we are in the challenge of finding what's the right metric of success for us as citizens. Some people are talking about the happiness index that is applied in some countries, but still we haven't found that. So this is a work in progress. The second contradiction in the industry and how people think about smart cities and what companies think is about the benefits of a smart city. Most people think, no, companies think that everything is about efficiency, making things faster, cheaper, bigger, whatever error you find, that will be the good thing. It's efficient, it's good. But I don't know, you went last night to the party, so I would ask you, when was the last time you had a great time? And that's our take. Life is inefficient. Life is totally inefficient, and we really enjoy those inefficient times. So how can we get into this? How can we balance this search for continuous efficiency that companies are looking for, and for our inefficient nature as humans, right? How can we do that? And that's what one of the other messages we are trying to achieve in the company. And the other contradiction that we found is that when we talk about smart cities as a company, we only think of governments. We think of the mayor, and I think this is the city hall, right? We're thinking of the mayor, we're thinking of the president, we're thinking of all the authorities on how can we make businesses with them, but we might be forgetting us, you guys. So what about us? What about citizens? What about people of the city that are really making this city great, right? So how can we bring those, how can we balance those benefits into the smart city conversation? So at this point, we are asking ourselves, are we really making cities smart? So does a smart city has to be only a tech solution, or what should it be? Those are the questions we're making, and we're trying, as I said, we're not trying to stop our smart city business, but we're trying to bring a different perspective on it. And we started a project called Linked Urban, and we're focused, our vision is to solve citizen problems. That's what we want. Focus on that. We don't want to solve city problems, because those will be solved by the smart city, the traditional smart city approach. But we want to see that, we want to solve citizen problems. We want to create IoT businesses, if it's possible. We want to be, they don't have to be connected stuff, but they have to be digitally enabled, because we're a business and we're on that. And of course, we have to make money. So one of the areas, so part of this whole study of smart cities has taken us to explore some areas. So far, we're looking at city commute, not only public transportation, but also in general how people are moving in the city. how the identity can work in terms of transportation, in terms of connected identity to connect different means of transportation. We're looking at last mile logistics. I don't know how big this business is getting here, but it's growing a lot. And how can we build digital solutions for this in terms of identity, in terms of logs, something that will make people's lives easier. So I don't know if you order too much or a lot online, but particularly in Spain is how many times you have spent hours at home waiting for a package. And then they tell you, oh, it will come from 9 to 1. So you have to stay at home the whole day just to get a freaking Amazon package, right? That's totally inefficient, right? So we're trying to solve that kind of problems. And some startups are doing a great job on that, by the way. And the other aspects that we're looking at are air quality and noise pollution. We believe that those are invisible problems that we only see once and we don't know what to do about that. So there is very high pollution, so what? I will stay at home? No, I have to work. So we're trying to achieve behavioral change on that. So mainly the areas of focus are in terms of access and lifestyle and participation, how citizens' participation will be in the city. And the other part is this about making the invisible visible, how people will improve the air quality of the city. How can we take the power and change our own behaviors to make our cities a better place to live? So this is linked urban. Oh, the other question marks are a couple of ideas that we're still thinking if they would be good or bad. We're thinking of tourism, how could be smart tourism, although I really don't like the smart term too much these days, but we're looking at those areas. So the learnings for this. We applied different perspectives. We didn't focus only, we talked also with people from the city of Madrid, the city hall, the authorities, and the funny thing when they talked to us was, okay, so you are from a telecommunication company, tell me what the hell is a smart city for you? Because last time IBM came and they wanted to sell servers. Then Cisco came and they wanted to sell routers. So you're a telco, you want to sell SIM cards probably. So we showed them the different approach we had, and we had a very interesting conversation. So he was surprised that a company was focusing on people. That's so weird. And the truth is that this message that I'm sharing today is, again, it's a work in progress, and it's not easy to sell. We're a company, and we are challenging the way we do businesses. We're challenging our own business model because we are maybe we haven't found what the right business model will be for it, but I think it should be a good approach for the smart city. So 2 cases, one smart city that we're still exploring, the other about video. I want to share now a bit of the attitudes we have. I don't think, these are tips or a bit of the attitudes we have to reframe problems, to change perspectives. And one of the things we do is very obvious, but it's just putting ourselves in the side of the customer, in the side of the government, in the side of the merchant of the streets, and try to understand what that means. And trying to build that empathy is not only mentally but also physically. What does it feel to be there in the store, behind the counter? And that's what we do in research. So some of the attitudes we have is that we do this with a real spirit of understanding. We want to learn about people. We want to learn what their problems are. We don't want to sell. And I think one of the biggest issues we have when we do have an amazing product is that we try to sell it. And we try to ask those questions like, do you like this? Would you buy this? And I think we don't get to very deep conversations in that sense. We try to be in the user context as much as possible. If we're developing a tool for chefs, let's go to the kitchen and see how it works, right? If we're, we try to ask, we try to avoid yes/no questions. As I said before, do you like this? Would you use this? Will be yes, no, and will not take us anywhere. We're looking for the stories behind. We're looking for the stories of the chef. We're looking for the stories of the government or the citizens, and how they interact with their own environment. The other one, and probably this is part of my job, we ask why. My job is about answering those whys, why we should do stuff, right? And that's one of the questions we barely ask, because I don't know why it's so difficult to ask why in an industry. And then we see the difference between tell me what you do versus show me how you do. One of the things that we do in research is we try to avoid a focus group, and we go there and have individual interviews, and that's a big thing. People will tell you that everything is very easy, but then you see how hard and how much effort they take to solve their problems, because we are natural problem solvers. But we might do all very user-focused and maybe very hippie citizens and everything, but we have to keep a very strong focus on business, how we make money. And the things, one of the things that I was asked is what do we do to convince people that this is going to be, that we have to stop a project, or do we have to go into this side? And I would say that we don't do this alone. I'm not going out to do research with my camera and my voice recorder. We do this as a team. So the product manager will go out with us, and then making those decisions and getting to those agreements of even killing a project, stopping a project is easier. And probably the last attitude we have, and I'm making fun of myself, we're not afraid of asking dumb questions, because many of the times we try to ask the smart question, but the dumb questions are those that get us to even dumber answers. So why are we here? And so I don't know. So why are we doing this? Because we always did it like this. And this is one of the typical innovation killers. So don't be afraid of that. Ask them, and you will get very frustrating answers, by the way. But this is how you start that conversation, because many of us in the industry have never asked why we're doing what we're doing these days. So reframing problems, it's not easy. It's not easy to get into our people, our users' perspective. It's really hard to separate what we do and how they think. And I would say many of the times we have said, oh, these guys don't understand our product, right? But at the end, it's us that we don't understand them, that we don't give them the right thing. So a couple quotes that I want to share with you, and then we can start the conversation, is one that is very inspiring for me, this from the founder of Pixar. We need to be able and open to explore what people are thinking and going beyond our industry. I think one of the things that the previous presentation is about connecting with the other developers, right? So let's see beyond our industry, let's see beyond our users and how we could connect with them. And as I mentioned before, I wanted this to be a conversation. So I don't know how likely or how possible it is for you guys to collaborate and bring this different perspective into the project you're working on. So feel free to make comments or anything. I will have a second quote, and we can finish. So any comments so far? How likely is it for you? Is it possible? No? Is it that hard? Okay. So the other the final quote that is really inspiring for me and for the company in general, well, not for the company but for the team we're working with, is something that in the tech industry might be a common answer, but it's this one. Many times we think going digital, transforming and everything is the way to go. But is that the right question? Is what we are always asking. Is that the problem we want to solve? And this is basically what I wanted to share. I don't know if you have any comment or questions regarding this on design techniques or anything, but Yakuyu. Thank you.
Okay, so how do you decide to make product in IoT instead of telecom? So, and why do you decide to make what better with IoT instead of?
So why we're doing IoT?
Yeah.
So the good thing of being in a telecommunication company is you get surprised of all the business they have. When I joined the company, I thought it was a communication provider. Oh, I don't want to sell mobile phones, right? Or TV series or TV services. But then we discovered that we are in this moment where the Googles of the world, the Facebook of the world are taking part of the business, and we're becoming only the connectivity part. So we're looking at what's happening next. So if we want to grow as a business or survive as a business in the future, we need to see two different industries, and IoT is one of them. IoT by nature is connectivity, so it's in our DNA, but we're looking way beyond. But we're also looking at the future of communication. We were exploring as well financial services, if we could provide payments. And I think IoT these days is hot. We should be as a connectivity part for sure, but what we're doing as well is exploring new kinds of connectivity, going beyond the 4G, LTE. We're exploring new types of connectivity that are more focused on objects and not on people, because we believe that kind of connectivity, the 4G, is good for us, that we exchange a lot of information, but the way this speaker works doesn't require as much connectivity as we require. So it's a good place to be now, I would say. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexei.
Hi.
And I work in an enterprise software business. Mm-hmm. And my question is actually, do you have any experiences how this reframing can be related to not a customer-oriented, but more enterprise-oriented businesses? And if you have any advices?
You're more into the B2B part, you mean? Or
yeah, B2B.
So one of the premises we have is that despite it's a B2B, it's still a user. So we try to I don't know what's the connection you have with your client, if it's direct or not, but I think we tend to see we are a B2B business as well. We have a strong B2B business, but we try to understand who are the users that will be using the solution that we are selling. So if it's the software, it's who will be using the software, not who will be buying it. So what we tend to do is to map, who you might know this, mapping all the stakeholders or the gatekeepers that were mentioned before. We try to map them and to see what kind of needs they have and try to solve it in that sense, because many of the decisions are made financially, right? It's the one who buys the product, but we try to go to the other stakeholders of it. I don't know if this answer and helps your question, but this is how we approach to it. Then what other thing we do is, well, we try to not only connecting with them, but also trying to solve problems together with them, right? In sort of a co-creation way of research. So we try to create solutions together, and not to create the solution with them, but to understand why they need things, right? We're pretty intense in terms of methodology in that sense.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next question is on the third row here.
Oh, there.
Girls, just here and then you, okay?
Oh.
And then on the back. I saw one hand there.
Hi Liz, my name is Ostap. Thanks for an interesting talk. And I was working in R&D department a couple of years ago, and I have a question related to the experiments you do. How many experiments do you run in parallel? How many of those have you killed during the previous year? And what do you do to fight this emotional pressure of killing the projects and the fact that only 10% of the projects actually succeed and move to the production?
To be honest, I think we have failed, or we have stopped or killed projects more than 95%, and I think you get used to it. One of the other premises we also have is that many of the innovation calls will fail, and we're pretty open with that, right? It's not only about the methodology, but also a cultural change, right? And I'm not saying it's easy, because we are a tiny group in the company, which is mostly make decisions by financial decisions, but this is something that little by little, the team's been together, not the IoT, but the design team has been together for over 5 years. It's been hard to say to show that we are providing value, but also we are stopping things, right? But that's how we get confident. It's part of the process. It's part of not being afraid to fail, I would say, right? And the other thing is that we are not paid to launch immediately, and that's a big thing that has been changing in time. Because many of the times is, you are brought here to innovate, but I'm gonna pay you to innovate and to launch something to market. So that sometimes is a disconnection because there is too much pressure. Again, cultural change, and that's the hardest part, I think.
I have some question related to the empathy process, because in your presentation you mentioned about this. So my first question is, did you use design thinking approach to identify real problems, end user problems, and in your opinion, what techniques much more better to use to understand end users?
To understanding users.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Well, design thinking process. I would say, yeah, we use design. So for us, user-centered design or design thinking is probably the way we work in general. So sometimes we're combining both. We're combining the lean startup approach and the design thinking approach. The lean startup approach is mostly focused on proving if there is business, but I think the design approach is finding the problems. So that's how we start every project, is building empathy at the beginning, and understanding in what arena, in what territory we are playing, then seeing what the problems people are trying to solve, and then we start creating something, right? Some ideas or solutions within different industries. Techniques. We mostly focus on one hand, secondary research first. So whatever you find in Google will give you direction on what's available, what's happening in the market. But then we try to go to talk to people, interview them. I would say interview is one of them. Like ethnographic interviews, going to their homes, walking with them, seeing how they interact with the object or with the solution or the market in general is what we do. We spend a lot of time with people, and we spend a lot of time analyzing those needs, those activities they do, the objects they interact with, and with other types of users. I would say usability probably more at the end of the project, but how easy is it for people to use it is definitely part of the techniques we do. and co-creation, as I mentioned before. Co-creation, but not co-creation as a way of creating with people, but as a way of understanding why people create something. Let me explain that. When we talk to people and they tell us, oh, I want this blue, we don't take that for granted. We ask them, why do you want blue, right? To understand what are the connections with those colors and why we should apply those comments. The other thing that comes to my mind is co-creation. So the interviews, user testing. Yeah, those are pretty much. We avoid focus groups, I would say. We avoid because when we are in a different environment, 10 people, there is always one who will lead the conversation, and maybe people will feel afraid of making a contradiction with the leader. So we avoid that. We try to have individual conversations. And what else do we have? We avoid those. Cool. I think those are so far. Let me think about more of them, but I will share more. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Self-documentation. Self-documentation for is part of the design thinking package that you get, right? But we have given people cameras or online research to do to take pictures of what they think it's important for them, and then ask them, why did you take that picture? Right? Not only about the product they are using, but about the general how. Yeah.
For me, it's more related to flexible situation.
Yeah, we do that for sure. Those we follow that journey part. I would say it's more of the analysis part on how it is, but it's part of the whole process for sure. And I think they are becoming more popular and more common for everybody, and that's good. I would recommend that every tool that we get, it should be just a tool. Many times we try to get into the sexiest tool, the newest tool, and it doesn't work for us. We try to force it to work for us. We force ourselves to work for the tool, and it should be all the way around. The tool should be useful for us. So what we do have, when you ask me about techniques, we have a toolbox of techniques, and we don't take them separately, but we tweak them, we combine them, and if it works, it's good, right? So I would encourage you to explore, to not to buy in any other new thing. That don't believe that because you're using a canvas, it will have a business model for sure, and that's something that's happening a lot in the industry. So you're welcome.
Okay, more questions? Okay, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm Joran, and I'm a business analyst. And I have just a couple of simple questions. First of all, to run that user analysis, you have to somehow pick right users to ask. Because asking not right users, not actually your audience, may lead you to wrong assumptions and wrong decisions. And another question is how to define and decide that that's enough of asking and analysis. How to stop it, that process. Thanks.
Those are simple, not very simple questions, for sure. So what's the right type of user? So again, when we talk when we go into secondary research and see where is the market size, we try to figure out in terms of demographics who they are. But we try to see a lot of behavioral aspects of that population. And at the beginning, we try to see if we're looking at, I don't know, financial services, we try to see who are the specialists in that sense, like people of investment banking or probably moms that save money to do grocery shopping. We go into the extremes part, and then we try to create something for people in the middle. One of the typical examples we use in this kind of conversations is that when we're talking about saving files for music, who should we talk to? To people like us who are listening to music every day? Or what if we could learn from specialists like a DJ, how they save music? So we go to extremes to create something for the middle. That's some of the things we do. And when it's enough, well, we have time pressure for sure. So all the innovation calls have a 3-month, we need to prove in 3 months that we found something. So we work on that schedule. And one of the things that the tech business or the digital products have is that research is continuous, right? Products are never finished. There's always version 2, 2.1, 2.20, and this is a continuous. We don't launch the final product, we just keep improving it, and it's, as I mentioned before, it's part of the culture of research being part of the development and not just a feed of information and then we're done. Yeah. You're welcome.
Okay, one more question on the back and then on the third row.
Hi, my name is Oksana. I'm also a business analyst. Just to continue the previous question.
Simple question.
Kind of, yes. That's why it was simple. So you mentioned that, yes, you don't wait for a long time and you launch and then try to improve. But what are the main criteria for you to understand that this exactly the MVP, you can do the first launch? Thank you.
That was not simple. Yeah, that's a hard one because we are thinking, what's the MVP, but also depending, this will sound ambiguous, but depending on the industry or the product we're working on, the MVP might be more or less appealing, more advanced or not. Because sometimes the MVP, that's a personal take or a conversation I had at the company, sometimes the MVP cannot be that simple. It needs to be a bit garnished a little bit so end users will be able to use it. I don't have a clear answer on that. I would say it depends. We should focus on what are the main features that will make a difference. What's the value proposition your solution is providing? So what's just the part of the potatoes and salad, right? Where's the meat if you are not vegetarian? Where's the meat and where should we focus, right? Is that the thing? When we were talking about digital, sometimes the meat is not enough, is how it looks and how people will download it, right? So we need to prove continuously what it is, what was the MVP. And that's the discussion we have with developers, right? And probably business analysts as well, that we need to be very clear on that part, and we are very ambiguous and try to move forward very fast. So, clear answer, I don't have that answer, sorry.
Okay, one more question.
No, there's one there.
And the last one, I think, will be there. So the question from the third row. Could you give a mic here?
There's one there on the back.
Yeah.
Oh, and one here.
Okay, then we'll start from the back one and then we'll return to you.
Can you hear me like this?
Yep.
Okay. My question is about some sort of a hypothesis. So when you conduct a research, I guess you start with some sort of hypothesis, right? So at the end of the research, how do you determine if the research was successful or not? What are the criteria for you to say, my research was successfully completed, I have these answers, or whatever. What is the definition of a success criteria for a research, and how do you even measure that?
So, okay, hypothesis. I'm sorry, it works depending on the project. So the hypothesis we had for the initial the video services was that people are looking for video services, are looking for mobile video services that they can take their TV services to any TV set, right? That was our hypothesis. We wanted to prove that if that was valuable enough for them. So at that point, we proved that it was interesting, but we found out the other parts of the content, right? So we could say in a very methodological way that our hypothesis was right, but being right on that was not enough because we discovered those side effects of consuming video. I would say no. We need to prove wrong or right the hypothesis. That's methodologically what we do. We prove it right, but we didn't move forward because I think we might have a clear hypothesis, but the more important part of this is that we all agree on that hypothesis as a team. So that's why, despite we proved it right, we were able, and I think I'm proud of it, we were able to kill the project because it was not enough. That's what we discovered. I don't think we have clear rules in design, and sometimes that's helpful and frustrating as well. But it's about continuous communication within the team, right? I don't know if this is very convincing, but we are, even though we are very straightforward and strict with the methodologies, we are pretty flexible in terms of the results. Not clear. We can keep the conversation after.
Yes, we have a coffee break.
You have a, oh no.
Yeah, and the last question here.
Hi, my name is Ole. I'm a business analyst. I have a question.
Business analyst.
All business analysts. How big is your team, and how many members are in your team, and what are the roles of your team members? The first question. And second, let's say you found out that your project should work. And how do you proceed? Do you go for investment to your mother company or give to development team, or how it works further?
Mm-hmm. Yes, good questions. So the team, it's two ways of seeing it. So we belong to the big UX discipline team or design team that is composed by researchers, visual and interaction designers, and I'm a hybrid between research and business and strategy. And that's what we have in the discipline team. But in the IoT team, I'm the only one with a design background there, and there are engineers, developers, and business developers, as many of them. So we are continuously communicating and sometimes clashing, right? Because we have different points of view, but that's part of it. In terms of funding, one of the things we have is the innovation goal. The innovation goal is a process that we, as a company, we open for the whole company to bring ideas. So they bring ideas that have interesting value proposition, and then they are evaluated. They make a pitch, and they get funding for the 3 first months that they can prove that the idea is solving the right problem. Once they go there, they go into prototyping, and then they go into the whole development process. But this is a continuous thing we do at the company, which is interesting. I don't know if if many companies do. I think many do, but that's not the most common thing. There is internal investment for that. And on the other hand, the company has this other initiative which is called Open Future, that has startup accelerators, that is just beyond our things, but that we are looking for ideas that are happening in the market and to invest in them. So 2 sources of funding, internal and external. And the projects I'm working on are mostly on the internal part. Yeah.
Okay, so that was our last question. Thank you, Luis, one more time.